Hello.
Hey.
It's Friday for a change, at least for on our side, and this is episode number 33 of Biweekly.
33 it is. Yeah.
Of Biweeklycast. The host is still here. It's me, Dima Malenko.
And I'm Slava Rudnitsky. Nice to see you at this probably last episode that we record in 2022.
Yes, most certainly is going to be the last episode of 2023. Did you say 2022?
I did say 2022. It is 2023.
But that's fine.
It was.
That's fine.
So today we are going to talk about yearly themes.
Yes, as we often do in the last or next to last or the first to last or last to first or second to first episode of a year. Is that?
Which is still going to be new for our English-speaking listeners because most of our yearly themes we were doing in the previous season.
I think we did the last for 2023 we did in this season. I think it was episode 10 or 8, I want to say.
Unfortunately, we have a list of episodes, right?
Yes, and since we moved to Notion, the list starts at 11. But no, I checked our previous notes. I think it's 9 or 10. The timeline we switched to this new season, I think it was September time. So by necessity, we had to go through 1 year change in this new season itself.
So how would you like to approach it this time?
How about we discuss this?
I mean, like, do we go from the basics, what it is, and
yeah, I think it would be useful for those who join us for the first time to kind of get situated in what this all is about. And since you are the man who has maybe the most themes of all of us, of different cadence, how would you describe a theme?
Well, I wouldn't say that in this regard, quantity has anything to do with quality, but all right. I'd say it's a theme of a year. That's quite a description. Actually, I think it's very intuitive just by the definition, because it's a vector that you would like to move towards for a specific period of time. For me, themes have stopped being yearly themes now. They are seasonal themes, monthly themes for longer periods of time, etc. But all in all, I think it's very different from traditional New Year resolutions because it's not very specific. It's usually more generic. And it's a bit similar to objectives in OKR style.
Right. Yeah, I think that I would describe it in pretty much the same words. It's a general direction typically set for a year because we learned this from our friends at Cortex Podcast, who are Mike Hurley and CGP Grey. They've been doing themes for quite a lot of time. They published some podcasts and videos about that. We will link to them in the show notes. So by and large, the theme is a general direction one sets for themselves for a year with the hope and sort of desire to make progress in that direction. It is not a specific goal or commitment to do a very specific thing, rather than it's general direction. That I'm lacking vocabulary to sort of describe it. When you want to give this particular thing a bit higher priority compared to everything else, and also be intentional about making decisions to make progress towards a theme.
Before we go into examples and some kind of retrospective, are you still enthusiastic about the method or kind of feeling some cooling down and neutrality right now?
I think in general, I'm still enthusiastic about it, but I also feel like for it to work, one still has to put some effort into it. It's not enough, like with the resolutions itself. It's also not enough to declare something in the beginning of a year or whenever you do that, and then just hope that things will magically happen. It still requires a bit of discipline and thinking and kind of being intentional about this. But I still feel positive about this whole enterprise. And what about you?
I was thinking about it, and for me, it would make more meaning and it would be more useful if we got back to our practice of theme corner. We could probably integrate it into our episodes, because basically your episode is every 2 months, to make these little checkups. Because this is what I was lacking last year, because basically we discussed themes a year ago, and here we are. I know that guys from Cortex podcast do that. They don't spoil the progress and how things went, but for me, it worked better with social commitment and discussions on the way.
I agree. I agree that thing I also missed for the past year, and I think my discipline in that regard was a bit shaky. And interestingly enough, that you mentioned that folks on Cortex podcast, they don't discuss this until the end of the year. I think maybe it's that they do not discuss this in public, but I would imagine that they would have conversations between themselves off record about that. Which
That's an impression I got from the last episode, but I might be wrong there. So I wouldn't say it's for certain. It just sounded as if they were so curious and they didn't want to spoil it for another one.
It's a good one. Good point. But yeah, we are free to make our own kind of changes to rituals and procedures, and I think that would be a change for best if we bring back the theme corner.
So shall we start with the past themes? Yep. How did they go? And I believe that yours was Year of Feeling Good, and I can see the results by the end of this year, and it doesn't feel that good.
Right. Yeah, the general idea was that what I started with was that I'm not in the best. Sorry, it's quite the opposite. Right, I'm not in the worst place, but I felt like I often was sort of unhappy or discontent, and when I stopped to think about this, I couldn't really find good reasons for that, and I wanted to make it a point that to be intentional about feeling good and being sort of maybe more objective about my situation, achievements, and stuff like that throughout the year. And it sort of worked, but maybe not to the fullest extent I had hoped. I still cannot say that I feel unconditionally good about stuff which I think I should feel good about, but that was I feel like a lack of discipline on my part, and too often getting into a situation when my headspace was too narrow to be intentional about process, like stopping for a little while and processing situation and see that it's not bad as they say here in England. But I've learned lessons from that, and I still grateful to myself for having done this.
It makes a lot of sense. And based on your feedback, you're not going to proceed with this theme in the next one?
No, not because this was a bad theme, but because I think I would be better off with a different general direction for the coming year.
Fair enough. And have you been journaling along this way?
This is an interesting thing, because I put this as a question in our notes. How do we think about tracking our themes in 2024? I journaled for the half of a year while I still had the theme journal. So it was kind of a reminder to do the thing. And I happened to have a very dedicated time where I was but forced to to do kind of theme thinking weekly, and then the theme journal sort of ran out, and then my schedule became a bit wobbly, and I was not as diligent with journaling, even though I've got a new dedicated paper notebook for that. I didn't make much progress with it.
Anything else we should know about your last year theme? Any lessons learned? Any experiences that came along with it?
I think that the biggest learning for me was, since you can kind of deduce that this theme was more of a kind of psychological, kind of mindset-y kind of category. The biggest takeaway from all of this for the theme and some other areas was that having enough headspace, I already alluded to this, is a prerequisite for certain things to happen. And I feel like when I do not allow, and when I do not construct situations such that they would allow me to have enough headspace to process and make not necessarily rational decisions, but at least intentional decisions about what's going on, not bad things happen, but things happen in not the best way, if I may put it this way. So this was one of the key learnings for this year for me. Looking back, I could clearly see correlation between, this was a thing with suboptimal outcome, both in terms of feeling good and otherwise, and I could correlate it. That was me not taking time to process it and make the decision, or not execute that decision in a better, more thoughtful way.
Well, that makes a lot of sense. I'm really curious about your next one, but before that,
we should talk about. I'm not sure about what specifically, but because you had at least two themes that would span across the entire year. That was a year of deceleration, and also this year was part of quintennial of scaling. So how did it go?
It's a quinquennial, which is a weird word for 5 years.
Quinquennial. It's a nice word, though. I should learn to.
It does sound nice. I cancelled it, though. So right now it's not the quinquennial of scaling anymore.
Oh, but the word was such a nice word.
Well, it's a triennial now, so it's still good.
It's equally as beautiful.
The year of deceleration was a success, I would say. I don't feel this deceleration right now in December, but during the year, I did chill, cool down, journal, rest, walk, recalibrated my habits on a regular basis. I can't say it all stuck, but at certain aspects of my life, it was appropriate and it helped a lot. So I think that this is the successful section of my theme. I also think that this quinquennial of scaling, which was the idea of building something that can go beyond and being more impactful, kind of lost its meaning during the research, because as part of this quinquennial of scaling, I started reading about scaling itself. And the more I got into this theme, the more I understood that that's not what I need. So I guess by September, I already knew that I need something else. It's not motivating, because scaling for the sake of scaling is meaningless. It should scale something. And I don't want to put scaling as the objective or as the main vector of the development, because, well, if there is nothing to scale, then it doesn't make sense to scale at the first place. But it took me some time, because I think I was really influenced by people around me, from Aspen, from SEO Club, who run really scalable things, and comparing to their businesses, my activities looked really minor. But now I kind of changed my perception and the way I see it, and I really enjoy the way it is now.
It's interesting. And speaking of habits and practices, did you try or pick up something new that you did not do before starting this year of deceleration?
I've rearranged a number of things. I added more writing time.
Mm-hmm.
I was doing a lot of writing, but right now I basically write in 2 journals simultaneously. One is a theme journal, and the other is more free writing one. And I do it both at the same time, which was weird because I would previously do it like in different formats, in different time spans, and so writing does help. And I got these 2 pens from Cortex brand, which is basically just different colors of the same pen. But I enjoy them both, and it also promotes me to gets me into writing a lot.
Oh, that's interesting. I didn't quite realize that you have kind of two notebooks, but the free writing and then theme kind of make a lot of sense. Maybe we can even sometime dedicate an entire episode this whole idea of free writing, because I'm also very, very curious about that. But I didn't quite realize that you also got two pens. Do you use a particular pen to write in a particular journal or something?
Not really. It's kind of just mood dependent. Basically, you can visually see that one is blue and the other is black.
Mm-hmm.
So one is actually blue ink and the other is black ink. And it's mostly correlating with my mood rather than anything. So both journals have blue and black pages.
That's interesting. And what helps you not to, let's say, miss time to do journaling and writing and stuff like that? Did you also make changes to your schedule to be in specific places in specific times, or how do you do that?
Do you know this state of mind and body when you get into something like sports, and then when you don't get sports, your body kind of feels sore? Or when you drink water on a regular basis, if you stop drinking, then you feel really thirsty when you don't get what you need. At first, it was just like a checklist. I was resetting all of my routines, and journaling was one of them. So for about 4 weeks, it was just a tracker, and I was checking every time I would do that. And I was kind of getting into it much more than meditation or something else. I would skip meditations for writing, for instance. And then it just stuck because it really works. There is a lot happening around me, and I think this is the most effective practice that has been supporting me through this year. I don't feel that I need psychotherapy or anything related to depression purely because of free writing and journal writing. So I really see the value of these pages, and I can see how it doesn't work for someone else, but for me it was a pillar.
Well, that's interesting. Interesting.
So the year of deceleration is done, and during this year I had the winter of focus, the spring of calm, the summer of habits, and then the fall of routines, which was a spin-off from the summer of habits. I was also splitting it to months, but I think we shouldn't get into it. I really like the way I decomposed the things because they were really related. And the theme journal has these 4 sections. Like there are 2 smaller blocks on the top, then the bigger block, and the last line. With having these themes, like on the higher strategic level, on the yearly level, and on something more tactical or operational, it's hard to name it, it kind of made more sense that the first little block was for my bigger thing, like for scaling, for instance. I would do something on a daily basis to get myself into this topic, ask a question, get a thought, consider, read a book, and then write a note there about it. So it was like a small section. And if I go through the pages just on the top side, I'll see everything I was reconsidering about scaling. Then the next one is surprisingly about the tactical thing, about the month or the season, routines or things that I work. And the biggest one was about the yearly theme. It was a bit unexpected because you probably would consider that the biggest section should be for something that you're doing right now,
Right.
but that's not true. And yearly themes took most of my time and attention, and I got there somehow intuitively. I was shifting those, trying to see whatever works for me. And the last little line is the focus of the next day, like what should be the main thing and priority tomorrow.
Oh, so did you do that journaling like daily throughout
Yep.
the whole? Okay. Does the theme journal have enough pages to
I've used two already,
All
and
right, I see.
I'm on the third one.
Oh, that's interesting because I initially, when we got our first theme journals, I also started with daily, and then I switched to weekly kind of thing. And I don't know why, but I was assuming or got the perception that you are doing something similar, and I didn't quite realize that you are not doing this daily thing. How did you ever do that weekly or less frequently than daily?
I did. Like, I think that daily frequency started just this year. So back with quinquennial of scaling, I probably started doing it more regularly.
Oh, that's interesting. And then do you do that in the end of the day?
Yeah, it's evenings. It's the time. Like, this procedure is the last thing before I get to the evening routines, like showers and evening walks or something.
That makes a lot of sense. I think what prompted me to switch from daily to weekly is that I guess was not able to arrange for that guarded time in the end of the day to do this thing, and at times I felt that I'm forcing myself to do this writing because I'm sort of obliged to, even though I have had zero energy or something, or like the schedule was such that all right, I'm falling asleep now, but let's do the journaling because I have to, and it didn't quite work. But I can see that if one manages to find time and be disciplined about this, it can be a really powerful way of doing that.
What I figured out that it doesn't work if you postpone it to the very last minutes of your day, because then you are tired and exhausted. But for me, it's also physical. Like when I actually leave this chair at the end of the day, and I try not to come back here for just fun or leisure, like it's the working space. And when I leave this space, the last thing I do is journaling, and then I can do some leisure stuff and activities.
Well, that's a good one. Maybe I can try this as well, because like I have this space, but I use it for both work and sort of pleasure kind of thing with photography and stuff. So it doesn't have this feel to it as switching places or switching something off. But I do go to office quite often, so I could think of doing something like that before I leave the office. All right. That's cool. Thanks for bringing this idea to me. Anything else you learned from this year of deceleration?
No, I think it was mostly about habits and lifestyle, and we've discussed it a lot. So I'm really looking forward to the next theme. And
which is going to be... Are you sticking to
your theme, which I don't know. So tell me.
mine? Well, mine... Okay, if you are switching gears from the past into the hopefully bright and optimistic future, I think what I would be thinking of in the next year would be the word next. I tried to figure out a way how to put it in a nicer way, but yes, I'm going to go with the year of next as a theme for my next year.
So just to double check, your next year is going to be the year of next.
Yes.
All right. Let's go to the next one.
It made more sense when I just thought about this in an abstract. So my theme is going to be year of next. And the idea behind that is that I feel like in different, at least several areas of my life, I've got maybe a bit too comfortable with what I'm doing, in a sense that, oh, like I learned something, I'm doing it, it now comes easy, and I'm sort of able to produce maybe too much of that thing, which I don't know what to do with it. And I want to spend time and thinking to and be intentional about, all right, so like I'm here now, what would be the next level or next something in different areas, and try to go there, both at work and with some of my hobby activities and like stuff in general.
What's your success criteria at this stage? Like, how do you know that, like, how would you know in summer that you are getting where you'd like?
I think that would be going to sort of next stage, at least with some areas of my life.
Next stage. Do you predefine those, or it's just like intuitive that you are not where you were previously?
For different areas, it has a bit of a different connotation, I would say. So at work, it is more um, definitive and simple in a sense that I want to, like, I'm at a time where we are sort of finishing or largely finished the big thing we were doing for past year or even more, and it only makes sense to think of what's next. Was the next big or bigger thing that I could put my effort to? So that's there. So it will give an indication, like, have we started, have we embarked on a journey on something big which is next compared to what we are doing now. And in things like photography, I'm doing quite a lot of it. I kind of share it with in familiar channels, but I've got more than I share. So like what would be the next, like what could be the thing I could do there? Would it be, I don't know, like maybe printing, getting into printing photographs and doing something with it, or maybe figuring out what are the competitions or something like that around and participating in it, or reaching out to some other photographers and do some collaborative work with them on something. Just like figure out what could be the next thing, next frontier that I could try to pursue, because I felt that there I'm sort of bored. I can come to a place and take decent photographs, but then what's next? Like what about that? What follows? And that I'll be trying to figure that out.
And how would you notice the absence of progress, like that you're not moving toward the goal? What would be the trigger? Or
I think that the trigger, the way how I would see that, I think with those daily or weekly retrospectives and stuff, if I see that I'm not doing new things, I'm not trying new things, that would be a signal that something is amiss.
is new necessarily next?
Probably. Well, like basically,
So in most cases it is.
probably yes. Maybe not necessarily new, but not doing, not just blindly repeating the old things and kind of following the already beaten track, something like that. Maybe it can be like doing the same but differently, and instead of like trying to capture as much or as many good photographs about particular thing, like get to one and do something with that one photo or something like that. It's a good point that next may often mean new, but I don't necessarily feel like it.
Sure. And would your, hypothetically, would your daily or weekly schedule change somehow?
I think it would have to a little bit. I would want to be a bit more, once again, intentional and allocate time for those, for figuring out what's next and then pursuing that.
Do you have it time boxed already?
No.
Like the what's next slot?
No, not yet. I'm using, as we discussed before the recording, I'm largely off until the end of the year, and I will be using this time to figure out how to set up this initial part of the year to explore this theme.
So what's next for Biweekly?
Episode number 34 on the first or second week of January.
Well, in this case, it was like 6 years of next episodes.
Yes, but those were good episodes, don't you think? Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, I do. Fair enough. Could you give me the most intriguing or I know delightful or something that out of this year of next gets you the most anticipation? Like this is something I'd like to try, or this is the next thing that should be great.
I can.
Can't.
I can. I'm not sure. Let me put it this way. I would love to, but not sure if I would manage to. Though I think that there is on the work related stuff that there is some kind of anticipation in me in kind of switching to a different mode of working on some of the projects and engaging more people, and therefore getting to bigger, better things. And this gives me a very positive feelings and kind of excitement about actually going there and trying and making it sort of work. And on other things, I don't necessarily have a specific idea that excites me, but in general, I'm sort of excited and being at giving myself an opportunity and hopefully time to figure out to do something different that would get me to the next, and not to the shop on Oxford Street, but like metaphorical next.
What's your first steps after your time off that you consider taking?
I need to figure out that the tracking, journaling kind of situation, which I hope to discuss a little bit with you. And I already got some interesting ideas from that. And then would be to be mindful and kind of reshape my weekly schedule to make sure that there is time for this to an extent that it probably, I initially envisioned that this might be even a constraint of sorts, where it's like, yeah, these are like 2 hours or an hour where you do nothing but this kind of to force myself into that mode, and then out of that see what would work better, but start with it.
Mm-hmm. So the next year is going to be year of next.
Yes. Now I cannot get this out of my head. The next year is year of next. Like it, but it's not for too long. It's what? It's 17th or 15th of December, so it's 16 more days, and it will be not the next year. It will be just this year, and this year's year of next would make a little bit more sense that the next year is going to be the year of next.
Fair enough. Anything you'd like to say about the process of getting to this theme? Like how did you figure out the wording, or what about the word next that motivates you?
I think as often happens to me, I quickly lose the genesis story for things like this.
But there are 3 stories about that.
3 stories.
It's another usual pattern that you start, like you know, here's one story about
Right.
that, and I don't remember the other 2.
Something along those lines. I think what I love about this sort of formulation of a theme is that it is both specific, or at least I feel like it means something specific to me. But at the same time, I also feel like it's ambiguous enough to allow for flexibility and freedom and figuring out what's actually next. And this is how I generally feel about themes, that they give the direction which is specific in terms of directionness, but still they are not too prescriptive so that you get frustrated that you are not hitting a specific mark. So that's something along those lines. And I just in general, by the end of the year, I felt like I lost enthusiasm towards some of the things I were doing, and I started thinking why that is. And I thought that it became too routine, too easy, sort of, and it only made sense to figure out, all right, so that's easy. What's next? That's not easy.
You're living the comfort zone that many people dream about right now. What do you mean everything is too easy and predictable? Just, please bring it in. I'd like to try that.
Yeah, I can see that.
That's still nice. All right. Anything else you'd like to add to the year of next?
No, I guess that's it. And I'm also already excited about the theme corners that are going to come. I think it will be a very useful instrument for me to keep track and make sure I do make progress in that direction.
Well, it did work previously, so chances are it should work again.
Yep. So there we don't need new. We need to stick to proven methods.
So the corner of past for the year of next.
Yeah, we get philosophical here, which is great, and maybe it's time to switch into what awaits for you in the next year, or what you want to await for you in the next year.
For me, it's hard to make themes for a year.
Mm-hmm.
I start with something bigger, and then I downgrade to what I need right now. When I decomposed my quinquennial of scaling, I thought that scaling is something that doesn't motivate me, but what does? And in the longer run, I realized that living in the conditions that we live in, I started using a lot of have to in my life. Things I have to do, where I have to be. And my first thought was like, maybe it should be something about intention or freedom or something. And I landed at the word flow. But then I realized that I don't like the flow because it's kind of buzzword these days, and it's been overused, and it has the different connotation. So I started looking for a synonym, and currently my theme sounds like triennial of glide.
Well, I need to Google this. Can you enlighten us? What
gliding? You could imagine a sailing boat that glides on the sea.
All right, glide.
Or a bird that glides in the air.
Okay,
like
okay. Got it.
It's the process of smooth movement from place to place. And when I think about an emotion, like I'd like to have this state of glide that I define very similarly to what flow is, but the word glide kind of motivates me to get there more, and it's not as stereotypical as flow would be.
Well, that's interesting, because the word glide also, at least in me, it evokes emotion of effortlessness, like a bird which soars and glides through the air. It seems to be effortless for it, right? Does it also have?
Yeah, that's one of the preconditions, because flow kind of means that you're moving, but not necessarily because you choose.
Mm-hmm.
Like for me, flow is associated with somehow a river, or where you could be in the flow, but this flow just brings you somewhere, and there you go. And glide has more choice and less effort.
Oh, that's interesting. That's interesting. So it's going to be triennial of glide.
And on daily basis, first few weeks I've been defining what it means for me. Like I was looking through different dictionaries, trying to understand what the word is and describe this state for me. And I'm still in the process because it's been just maybe a month, a bit more than a month since I switched. And then when I have this bigger picture or the bigger frame, it's easier for me to move to the yearly theme. And one of the first answers that I got, that in order to get to this state of glide, I would want more meaning in what I do. It should be really meaningful, because it's basically the definition of flow from the previous book. It should be challenging enough, but not too challenging, and it should be meaningful to get you into this right state. So the year of meaning is my new yearly theme.
Oh, wow. Interesting.
And I reflect on daily basis on things that I do. And this is, remember, the biggest section of my theme journal. What's the meaning of things? Why am I doing those things? And how did they go? So basically reflection on my daily and weekly scope to find the meaning, to create the meaning, or to give up things that don't make sense.
Well, this is interesting, and I was you already gone into it, but I was going to ask, like, what does meaning mean to you, to continue a bit on the tautology game, but you explained a little bit. And do you already have examples of things that you would consider meaningful and things that you would consider less so and would like to remove them from your life?
As an example, the type of rest. It's really hard for me to rest with just, I don't know, go into the countryside and looking at the nature, just nature. But going to Aspen and moderating a seminar is a great type of switch off. Like, if it's meaningful, if I can see that I'm helping this group, I can enjoy the swimming pool, walk in the mornings, do all the things that I would do on vacation, and combine it with something that makes a lot of sense. And I don't feel this sense of guilt or boredom that I normally would if I were just spent a week in the country house.
This is interesting. So is it? It feels to me that this way you're kind of encroaching into your rest time and rest territory and saying that, hey, I don't want just rest. I want even my pastime to be meaningful and engage in some sort of activity that.
That's because I was not having any time for rest. And in order to create it, it should get meaningful.
Right.
Like, when you don't have any extra space, creating this extra space by saying, like, I'd like to enjoy the meaningful tea ceremony. Like something that makes sense in terms of what I'm thinking about, what are my considerations in the process, rather than just having some time off to drink tea. I'll go to the tea house. I'll have this special kind of tea that makes sense to me, and I'll think or run the procedure and the tradition that will most likely rationalize it for me, because I basically have to choose between other things that I have to do and reprioritize something that I'd like to do. And in order to get this I'd like back, I should reconsider the meaning. Another example is music. Like, I really love music, but it was meaningless to play it, and I had other things to do, so I stopped. And it was really hard to get back. I even bought a new musical instrument and didn't manage to spend enough time doing it because there were other things that I had to do. And right now, when I'm focusing on meaning, music is actually a powerful tool to get me into the state of glide. And it could be a practice that later makes me more productive. And in this regard, these ukulele and guitar practices start looking very different. It's not just leisure, it's not just chilling. It's the process of getting me into the proper state. And with this meaning, I can definitely find more time, and I'm much more motivated to get into this practice.
Well, this is very interesting, and the reason why I kind of try to poke more into this, because I remember, and maybe still to this day, I'm kind of in the mode of trying to do the sort of opposite, to find ways to allow myself to kind of chill just for the sake of chilling or have rest for the sake of having rest, because I remember those situations where I would not do something restfully, kind of I would not spend pastime because I could not find, not say, I don't want to use words, couldn't find meaning for that, but I saw that through the lens of, oh, this is going to be a waste of time. It has to have something in it. And I felt like for me, at least at some point, it went into almost unhealthy territory where I would refrain from doing thing I loved, and I would enjoy the process of doing this thing just because it was seen by my inner self as, oh, this is going to be a waste of time. I better be working on something. So I'd be very curious to know how you go through that.
I think that the easiest way to approach it is to switch the lens from utilitarian into what does it bring me, or what impact does it make, into more the virtue style, like how does it change me, or what's happening with me in this moment. And in these regards, it's not like how effective I become or what is the impact of these lessons, like do I actually learn to do ABC. It's what am I cultivating in me at the moment. Is it about wisdom? Is it about patience? Is it about something else? Strategic thinking. And these things can change. I think that I have enough tools right now at my disposal to just let things go. Like the motorcycle is a good example. I just enjoy riding places I don't know and turning to some weird ponds and forests. And this process by itself is cultivating the bravery. Bravery is a virtue. And it feels meaningful enough just by that.
Yeah, I think then would it be fair to say that it's like you're trying to convert like generic ought to, like, as if we take as an example, I ought to have a rest, into meaningful and specific thing, or like instead of, oh, I ought to have a general rest, I'm going to go to this particular like tea ceremony or do a motorcycle ride to see what kind of new things I can try, or what new paths I can explore there. And in general, it would be still fulfillment of that ought to rest kind of thing, but you would give it another specific meaning for very specific activity that you're going.
It's like finding extra layers in the activities that are already there. Maybe giving up some and substituting them with the other, if it makes sense.
That's interesting. I'm already double excited for our theme corners through the coming year.
Interesting fact, because what I would do before, I would go for a seasonal theme, like the winter of something, and then monthly theme. And this winter, I couldn't think of a theme because the Year of Meaning sounded solid enough. But I did bump into a monthly theme. And right now I'm in analog December, which is the process of getting me from digital practices to the real life practices, like handwriting versus typing, playing music versus listening music, walking versus watching something, conversations versus podcasts, and so on. I'm not sure if it's going to be just a month or maybe January. And analog January sounds good too. Plus, it's the vacation time, which is coming, the holidays. It will also promote me and create opportunities to go into this real life world. And maybe you've seen some stories on my Instagram with these metal puzzles that I've been solving. It's also part of the theme of getting to some real life things that I could see instead of just trying to chill by some digital means. I would take pieces of metal and try to put them together to get myself into the state of glide, to get into the Year of Meaning, and to get out of this digital atmosphere.
Oh, that sounds great. That's interesting because and I also kind of curious about your use of word analog for this process. Is it analog as opposed to digital, right?
Mhm. I was thinking about these analog phones that were just buttons without screens.
Those are digital.
They were not analog, right?
Yep, they're digital. Well, I mean, they based on digital technology, but they feel less digital, kind of metaverse as the phones that we use now.
I would say the fewer screens, the better in this regard.
That's interesting. That's interesting. And do you with that? mm, Do you feel any sort of like pushback in yourself when doing that? Because when I'm thinking about something like this, I'm often stopped by the idea that if I write something, let's say in a notebook or something like that, it is with me. There is a higher chance that it will be buried there forever, and I felt like there is more chance that I will take it to the next, to something, to the next, that idea or note or whatever, to the next step if it is digital, and therefore I try to kind of navigate and balance between that tactile enlightenment of doing things with pen and paper versus doing things digitally. How does that work for you? Is there any sort of conversation that you're having inside around that?
I have a tool for that. If I think I'll be getting back to these notes or these thoughts,
Mm-hmm.
I use the pocketbook. This is this digital notepad that can get scanned and send me a copy of these notes to a digital place like Google Drive or email or Dropbox or something along those lines. But it has happened just once for 4 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
In 4 weeks, which is not very frequent. So for most cases, that doesn't seem to be a deal for me. Even if I have to get back to some paper notes, the only thing that I do is that I keep the papers and the notes for 2 weeks before I throw them away.
Mm.
So even my fleeting notes from this Sidekick notepad, I still store under the mat. And when they have not been used for a while, then I let them go.
Interesting. Yeah, it sounds very, very exciting and interesting year ahead of us.
Maybe even more than just one. We'll see.
That's for sure. Any last things about your team? Because
I think we're pretty much done.
so still, I would love to. We do technically have a little bit of time, and then we define the time on this podcast. We are masters of it. I hope. So I wanted to explore a little bit that idea of tracking, and of course we all got that you are going to continue using the theme journal and where the sections that CGP Grey and Mike created for all of us would make a lot of sense for how you structure your thinking. Did you at least consider other means of tracking? Do you have things that we know that you have things that you like about this? Do you have things you dislike about this way of going about themes?
There is one more thing that I haven't mentioned. I'm not sure the video captured that, but I have a visual reminder on the window. This is the place where I stare most often. And I have these like see-through stickers with the titles. And they kind of like when I blank out and then I find myself looking at the themes, it kind of brings back a lot of reflection and thoughts. So I think visuals are really handy because if themes exist only in your journal and they don't have any external tokens, they kind of seem very abstract. With the example of quinquennial scaling, I had a book, Masters of Scale, and it has been sitting on my table as a physical reminder of the theme. I was not even reading the book. Like I tried reading it, I gave it up, but the idea and the concept of it was a physical reminder in the world about the theme. And I think that one of the reinforcement methods is creating these illustrators or spirits of theme that you could physically see and engage with. Even like the pen is an amazing example of analog December, like the handwriting and paper and all these sort of things.
Yeah, that's super interesting and makes a lot of sense. Thanks for reminding about the reminders of the team. At some point, I used a special watch face which would like there are different watch faces which would allow like some blob of text to appear there. I used that for a time when I wanted to make sure I do not forget to focus on a specific thing, and it was really helpful, at least for me who glances at the watch every now and then.
I think another interesting thing is telling people you don't know very well about themes. Because when I explain what themes are and I have to give some relevant examples from my daily life, like what themes are, so I can cut a lot of corners and not get into the details.
Right.
But when I have to re-explain it to someone, some of my colleagues, folks from Aspen, just people from random breakfast app matches or elsewhere, it could be used even as small talk before the Zoom conversation or something. It brings a lot of like even today, when you asked me in the very beginning of the conversation what themes are, I had to reconsider that a bit for myself because things change. And what themes were 2 months ago when I was shaping those and what themes are for me today is very different.
I will try to use the time I have left this year to figure out how I'm going to do the tracking and journaling for the themes. I'll probably stick with pen and paper because I kind of like it. And thanks once again for reminding about the daily aspect of this, which can be helpful, I think, for me as well. Would be happy to report.
Especially now when you're in reconsideration time, I think it's even more relevant. But again, shouldn't be really pressure to do it because during my year, I had like weeks off when I was not journaling, and then I would get back because I felt the need and the urge.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there is something magical about it. Pen and paper, especially if it's a good pen and on a good paper.
Indeed. And are there any other reinforcement methods that you've used previously or that you would like to try?
Enforcement methods sounds harsh. What do you mean?
All right, things that enhance the theme. Enhanced theme doesn't work. Well, something that makes it happen or gives more energy, thoughts, and focus to the theme.
Well, I think the peer pressure that we... Not peer pressure in a good sense of this word, just...
Let's go into peer support instead.
Yes, that's right. The peer support is helpful. Like finding a partner, they may not necessarily be fully aware that they help you on the theme, but if there is a part of the journey for the team is aligned for what someone else is going to do, partnering up with them, I find very, very helpful. Even though I, for myself, I tried and want to think of myself as like a very resourceful person, I still find a lot of value in support from others and partnering. Like together we can go further and for a longer time than each of us could do alone, including what
That's
happens
very
on
social of you.
Biweekly podcast.
True. Even though Biweekly is getting digital these days. And do you remember those 2 episodes when we were in the same place? Actually, an episode, sorry, my bad.
No, there were...
Recording in the same room. It wasn't co-working space in
was
Kyiv.
it only once? Was it?
Yep.
All right, so that's super special. We should find a way to sort of repeat that.
One day, definitely.
All right, and before we close, with the year of meaning, like, do you hope to find new meaning in Biweekly?
I keep finding it all over the time, because every time I suggest a topic, or I think of a guest, or I read your notes on something, like your Zettelkasten, I'm sorry if I mispronounced that method that you've suggested, it does bring a lot of meaning. And I got myself into re-listening to our episodes again. I was doing that previously, like in the very, very first episodes of like 6 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And right now, when my podcast player suggests that I listen to our episode, I don't skip it. Like, I actually go with pleasure and re-listen to them.
Cool.
So no need to rediscover something because it's already there.
Nice. No, that's nice. I also like editing our episodes, obviously, and another opportunity to relive the conversations we had.
And this episode 33, which you might find more meaningful because it's 33 and blah, 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 but seems like a really long stretch, because for me, it feels as if we were just relaunching Biweekly, like, I don't know, a few months ago.
Right.
And we were considering the format, switching the language, and doing all these kind of things. And it's 33. Considering the intensity and the number of guests and the frequency of episodes, it's been a while.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Gosh.
But then that's great. And I'm super grateful and thankful to you and to our listeners. I guess that we still see meaning in what we do. We are excited about what's next for our podcasts and episodes and the topics and themes we discuss, and this is great.
And I think this is one of the few exceptions when I'd like to make a call to action to people who actually listen to us to come to our YouTube page of this episode and get into the comment section and tell us what you think, because probably if you're still here at this stage of the episode, it makes some sense to you and it does bring some meaning. So please share it with us, because it's been mostly a conversation of Dima and me, and we could make it something more, something next,
Yep, something even more meaningful.
Well, or just some rest and time off that you're going to take in the next few weeks before we get to the year of next.
Hopefully those are going to be good weeks, and the next year, whatever the year is going to be off, is going to be a good year for everyone.
And it's not an advertisement of a brand, it's just a metaphor. Yep.
I got it. That's a good one. It's not an advertisement.
Product placement, you have to make money somehow.
No, it's not an advertisement. It's a call to action. Make it a good year.
Yeah, make it a good one.